Hello and welcome back to the SaaS Marketing Weekly podcast with me, your host Ryan, the founder of Rocket SaaS. And today is episode 3 of a 3-part series on LinkedIn ads. We have Jamie Skills back in the house. Hello.
Hello, good to be back.
So in episode 1, we talked about LinkedIn, the different types of ads that you can be creating. So the different types of ad formats you can be running, the top of the funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel ads. Then in episode 2, we talked about targeting, talked about the ICP, talked about different LinkedIn filters. And we also talked about adding on additional targeting using tools like Clay and also CRM data. So if you haven't listened to episode 1 and 2, I recommend you go back and check those out. But today, episode 3, we're talking about budgeting, optimizing. So we've now created the ads, we've now launched the campaigns, they're up and running. Well, actually, you've got to set the budget first. So we're going to get into that. And then what do we do when we press launch? Do we just sit and wait? I presume not.
Just leave them. Just let them run.
No, we don't. We keep optimizing. So we're going to get into all of that today. So Jamie, where should we start? We're going to start with like how to set a budget. So how does that start, that process in your mind of budgeting?
Yeah. So I think budgeting is definitely one of the trickier concepts for people new to LinkedIn, because I think what's the normal kind of process is like, we'll go, right, we'll chuck that in and we'll test it. We'll throw like a few thousand at it and we'll just
I like
see
a round number. Yeah. I just stick $1,000 in. Yeah. That's what I usually say.
Which, listen, like if you'll put it in and you'll learn from the data pretty quickly what you're getting back. But in a more kind of structured sense, I definitely take a bit of a different approach. So I think one of the most helpful ways to kind of plan your budget, and there's lots of different things you can look at when you plan your budget. You can make it very complex. But I think one of the simplest ways to kind of think about it is what you want to set the budget around is estimating the budget based on a target reach within your audience and a target frequency. So what I kind of mean by reach and frequency is of the total audience that you're going to be targeting, what percentage of that audience are you aiming to reach in a 30-day period in a month? Like how much of that audience do you want to reach each month? And then equally, how many times, when I talk about frequency, how many times do you want someone in that audience, an individual person, how many times do you want them to see your ads each month? And what you're going to do is you're going to build targets based on kind of what you're trying to achieve with the campaigns and what you think is realistically possible within your budget. So just to give kind of an example and break that down a bit. So if I'm thinking about a remarketing campaign, usually with a remarketing campaign, what I'm aiming for is conversion. I'm trying to either surface messaging that I think is going to move someone to come organically and submit a demo form, or I'm surfing an ad that I want someone to click directly, go to a landing page or a form in LinkedIn and submit that form and convert into a demo or a sales call, etc. That's what I'm typically trying to do with remarketing. There's lots of uses, but that's typical. When I think about reach and frequency for a remarketing campaign, what I attempt to do, what I usually look at is I want to maximize the reach in that campaign. So if I have an audience of, say, 8,000 people in my remarketing campaign, ideally, what I want to do is reach at least kind of 70 to 80% of that audience month on month. And the main reason behind that is that obviously, if I have an audience of 7,000 people that I know have engaged with me before and I'm trying to convert because I think they're more likely to convert, ultimately, if 5% of that kind of audience, if we use that heuristic, like if 5% of that audience are in market, maybe have a need, I want to maximize the chances that my ads are going to be seen by someone in market. So I'm trying to achieve as much reach as possible. Otherwise, if I'm only reaching 20% of the audience a month, my ads might not just be hitting them. So I'm never going to convert people who might be in market if they don't see my ads. So I'm aiming for a lot of reach.
Right. So you're talking about the retargeting audience.
Yeah, at the moment. So I'm talking specifically about the retargeting audience.
Okay. So people that have already been onto the website or already engaged with ads previously, you've got them in a particular campaign that is only the retargeting campaign, because your cold audience who have never heard of you before, they're in a different campaign.
Yeah.
So you've got this audience of people that you know are interested in your brand because they've come onto your website, they clicked on your ad before. So that's obviously much, much, much stronger than people that have never heard of you before. So one of your budgeting goals is I want to be hitting 80% of them.
I want to be reaching the vast majority of that audience to maximize my chances of hitting someone in market in that pool.
Right, as opposed to taking a lot of the budget and using it at the cold audience level to people that have never heard of you before. You want to maximize your retargeting budget.
Yeah, so just in terms of like the retargeting pool itself, like what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to achieve the maximum amount of reach I can, and also tying in the frequency equally. Like most people don't buy an ad. Most people don't buy a product after seeing an ad one time. Sometimes it happens, most of the time not. So in a 30-day period, I want my ads to surface to a buyer enough times to make an impact. So frequency is really debatable. Like it's a really debatable topic around how much frequency in a 30-day period is right. It's probably changes based on your buyer, based on your market, etc. But like a good kind of benchmark, I think, is around 10 frequency. Is a good benchmark to aim for, anywhere from like 5. Some people I've seen have gone as high as 15 to 20. I think that's a bit excessive personally. But I tend to aim for kind of like 80% reach in that audience and 10 frequency. So I'm maximizing my reach and I'm maximizing my amount of the amount that those people are seeing the ads.
So when you say 80% reach and the frequency, meaning how many times someone sees an ad, is that both within the 30-day period? So if you're saying I want a budget that's going to hit 80% of the retargeting audience, that's within 30 days.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So in a 30-day period. So I'm budgeting per month. So I'm just budgeting based on how much reach do I want a month? How much frequency do I want a month in this remarketing context? So you're
saying a lot of companies might make the mistake of if they are running a cold audience campaign and a retargeting campaign, putting too much budget into the cold audience campaign and not having enough budget left into the retargeting. So they're only showing maybe 20% of the people in the retarget audience are seeing the ads, and you're just missing out on all these people that are kind of like in the funnel on their way there.
I think a lot of people can quite often just chuck money at it and kind of just be like, oh, we'll put like, and a lot of the time, like there are good rules of thumb that can work reasonably well. Like you can say like, oh, we'll put 70% into cold and we'll put 30% into remarketing because we want to build the remarketing audience with the cold layer and we're going to use the remarketing. And often like that can work okay as a rule of thumb. There's nothing like necessarily wrong with that. But it's more about, particularly when you're trying to do things in a bit more of a structured way, what this gives you is it gives you security in knowing that if my remarketing campaigns aren't succeeding, it's not because we're not hitting the right people or we're not giving our ads enough of a chance to make an impact, which eliminates a layer for you of kind of like, why are the campaigns not working if they're not working, which can be really helpful. But yeah, in terms of kind of calculating that though, so this is where it comes back to the budget. So if I'm aiming for 80% reach, and in LinkedIn, the metric that you're going to be looking at is audience penetration. So audience penetration is an indicator of how much you'll see it. As you kind of pull the dashboard up, you can view in a 30-day period, how much audience penetration are you getting? So I'm going to be, that's what targets I've set, kind of 80%, maybe like 5 to 10 frequency. What I'm going to be doing to calculate how much budget I need to achieve that is you need to take your audience size, and you need to basically break down from the audience size, like with your target reach, your target frequency, and you need to look at your historical CPM. And there's a calculation, which I won't kind of bore you with here. We're going to share it in the future. But there's a calculation you can do to kind of estimate how much budget you need to achieve those targets. But that's the fundamental kind of approach really, is starting from a place of reach and frequency, and budgeting based on those metrics and those targets.
Mm-hmm. So with the cold audience layer versus the retargeting audience layer, is there a particular percentage split? So you'd put X percentage into the cold layer and Y percentage into the retargeting layer?
Yeah. So again, this is kind of, it all depends on what you're trying to achieve. So, and it's going to change based on kind of what you're trying to do. So a lot of people kind of naturally basically go from a perspective of like, particularly when you've got a remarketing audience, maybe it's like a few thousand people, you want to continue building that, obviously. And like you can saturate a remarketing audience quite quickly. So you don't want to not keep building it, because if you just keep reaching the same people, there's going to be diminishing returns. So a lot of people tend to weight more heavily in favor of cold, and they'll invest. I think typical rule of thumb will be kind of like 60 to 70% goes into cold, 30 to 40% goes into remarketing. Also, remarketing audiences are a lot smaller, so it naturally kind of splits that way anyway.
Yeah.
So what I was talking about earlier, like when you do actually your calculations, how much budget do you need to achieve your target reach and frequency? It's always going to be a bit lower for remarketing, mostly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I remember like at Rocket SaaS, we do our ads in a similar way. And I was speaking to yourself about how we split the budget. And you said, yeah, we should be putting about sort of maybe 70, 80% into the cold layer and sort of 20 to 30 into the retargeting layer. And immediately I was like, well, no, we should be putting more into the retargeting layer, because the retargeting layer is the people that already come to the website, already interested in working with us. But then, you articulated that.
But this is where that's why it's really helpful understanding kind of how much reach and frequency you want to achieve, because what that money buys you, what the extra money buys you, it doesn't buy you, it doesn't even buy you like necessarily clicks or like click-through rate, or it doesn't buy you all those metrics. What it buys you is extra eyeballs and how much those eyeballs see your ads. That's what the money buys you. So like if I know that with our remarketing audience, I can reach 80% of them and I can hit them this amount of times each month, and we're happy with that, then I know that just putting another 1,000, 2,000 into the budget in remarketing, all that's going to do is just crank the reach, crank the frequency, and maybe we're already maxed out because we don't want to drive buyers mad with our ads. We don't want to bombard them, and it won't deliver more results anyway. So that's why you look and then you go, well, actually that budget is better deployed either on other channels or in the cold layer. Yeah,
that was a kind of penny dropping moment for me. That helped me understand it better. Is that, your retargeting audience might be small. There might only be like 300 people in that retargeting audience. So if you try and whack $5,000 a month ad spend into it, you're just going to annoy them by just showing them the same ads again and again and again. They're eventually going to get bored. And as you said, it's not going to bring in any more leads. You could have spent a lot less getting the same amount of leads. So what you're better off doing is spending more money in the cold layer. So what you're doing by spending more money in the cold layer is hitting a massive audience or comparatively massive audience with new ads that they haven't seen before, and they're engaging with those ads, and then those people are moving into the retargeting layer. So by spending more on the cold, you're filling up the retargeting layer, which gives you a better chance of obviously getting conversions. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I think again, just coming back to it in terms of budgeting. So that's that example we give for the remarketing. That's also applied at the cold layer level. So when I look at kind of reach and frequency there, the audience is often going to be a lot bigger. So let's just say that you've got an audience of 30,000 people that you're targeting. That's your ICP that you're going after on LinkedIn. What I'm going to be looking at there, depending on what types of campaigns we're running as well, this is all going to factor in. But a good rule of thumb that typically a lot of advertisers use is kind of anywhere kind of 40 to 50% audience penetration. We still want to reach a lot of that audience month on month and try and saturate that audience. So our ads are remembered and we're easier to recall and stuff. And equally as well, we're probably not going to be able to afford as much frequency. It's going to be harder to reach all of them and hit them enough times because it's going to cost a lot of money. So kind of depending on what types of ads we're running, kind of a lot of people debate this as well, but anywhere from kind of 2 to 5 frequency, depending on what you're trying to do with the ads.
Okay.
And you estimate the budget working backwards from that's our target, here's our CPM, run the calculation, which we'll share, and then we'll kind of get to our final position. That gives you a structured budget based on real goals rather than we'll chuck $1,000 in.
Nice. Okay, so let's say we have set the budget, the campaigns are now live, the fingers are crossed that this campaign is going to work or these campaigns are going to work. So how should we be optimizing these campaigns? Obviously, the leading metric that we want to see is naturally conversions. If you are launching LinkedIn campaign for the first time, like a brand new campaign, which you probably are if you listen to part 1 and 2 and now 3 of this series, conversions are unlikely to start coming in within the first few days or even weeks. So what should you be doing other than kind of waiting for conversions to come in? What kind of metrics can you be looking at when you know that the targeting is looking promising or unpromising? You've already talked about things like frequency, like when should you be changing the ads or should you just be leaving things? What sort of things you look for after you've launched a campaign in the first few weeks? Yeah,
definitely. So again, this is going to come back to the types of ads you're running. But to give kind of a good example. So I've probably kind of split this between if we kind of look at the ad campaigns we have set up in LinkedIn, some are for like demand creation, kind of creating awareness and educating people about the product. Let's kind of put that in one bucket. And then we've got like demand capture campaigns, which are just obviously there to kind of convert someone into a meeting or into some kind of like demo, etc. So to start with, in terms of like demand creation side of things, the way that I'll kind of look at these campaigns, depending on what I'm running. So typically in a demand creation campaign, there'll be probably two types of content. Some you're actively optimizing for in-feed consumption. So you want the ad to be read and consumed in feed. You're trying to get a message across or some sort of content across without leaving the platform. That's one kind of way of approaching it. And then the other is content that's going to take you off the platform onto like a piece of content on your website, somewhere else externally, etc. So typically the way that I would measure, if we start with the in-feed consumption side of things, so in terms of understanding, are the ads working, before we get to the lagging metrics of kind of like conversions and pipe and revenue, etc. What I'm going to be looking at is that reach and frequency is important. So are we reaching enough people? Are we hitting them enough times with our ads? So that calculation we talked about earlier, that is an estimation. And when you actually put it in, if like the cost to deliver to that audience is higher than your estimation, we need to monitor that. We need to understand, are we able to hit the reach and frequency goals that we set out? That's a good leading metric, because then I know I'm hitting them enough times, I'm hitting enough of the audience to make an impact based on what we've judged our goals to be. So that's one leading metric I'm looking at, two leading metrics. The others I'm looking at, so I'll go a layer down. So that's kind of, are we reaching them? We hit them enough times. And then I'll go down and I'll look at, okay, is the messaging, so if we're looking at in-feed consumption, is the messaging resonating? Is it stopping people in the feed, and is it getting consumed? Because that's ultimately what we're trying to do. And there's a few metrics that I'd be looking at from that side in terms of demand creation. So in terms of understanding if those ads are working, two big ones for me that I look at. Dwell time. Dwell time is a really important one. So dwell time, for anyone who doesn't know what dwell time is, dwell time in LinkedIn is a metric which basically tells you how long someone has stopped on average, how much your audience stops and looks at a specific ad and has it in view in a specific ad. So what is a good proxy for is it stopping people and is it capturing their attention? So some like common benchmarks that I tend to see like come thrown around about dwell time tends to be anywhere from kind of 3 seconds is like the lower end of like solid, and then up to kind of like 5-6 seconds plus, you're getting up to like really good. And so that's a really helpful metric to look at, dwell time. And then I pair that personally with engagement rate. So I want my ads consumed in feed. I want them looked at. I want people engaging with it and reacting positively to that message and that content. So if I know that with dwell time, they're stopping, they're looking, and then I use engagement rate to judge, okay, are people reacting positively to it? Are they liking it? Are they clicking through? Are they commenting, etc.? Use that engagement rate as like a proxy metric as well for that's like a suggestion they're enjoying the content on the messaging or they're resonating with it. Pair those two things together, and that's a really good way of understanding as a leading metric, are the ads working from an in-feed perspective? On the flip side to that, if we're looking to just get people to content off the site, then I'm just looking at click-through rate, to be honest. Like the whole goal is to get them to the content. So what we need to be looking at is click-through rate to the content. Is the ad doing its job and getting people to the content? And then if you want to understand if the campaign is working well as like a content, getting it to a specific page, then we want to look at click-through rate, get to the page, and we want to evaluate kind of things like scroll depth. Are people actually reading the page when they get there? And those are kind of really helpful leading metrics when you're kind of just getting started and you're waiting for like leads and stuff to come in. For the demand creation side, are the awareness campaigns working? We can get onto the demand capture things in a second as well.
Yeah. So I think, well, we did that recently with Rocket SaaS. Is we used Clay to analyze all of our CRM data. We changed our targeting that we talked about in episode 2 of this mini series. And then we spun up a whole new campaign with all new targeting. And I think we immediately saw that the click-through rate doubled. And then a lot of the dwell time metrics, all of the metrics just like went up.
Yeah.
And then it was a case of, okay, great, the leads are probably going to follow shortly after this, and they are. Yeah. Our LinkedIn ads are performing better than ever from a conversion point of view and a sales pipeline point of view. And the signs are all there when we launched that campaign for the first time. So yeah, there are those metrics that can tell you that you are on the right path. I mean, this is a difficult question perhaps, but how long after you've launched a campaign, I know it obviously depends on budgets and everything, but how long should you kind of wait until you should, make some big changes in terms of you understand that this campaign is probably not working. So obviously, conversions is the 99% of the companies, the only thing that they care about at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So even if some metrics are looking good, but you're not getting conversions, sort of when is the time to say, okay, we should probably turn this off?
Yeah. So I think that's going to come back to your goals. So depending on what your goals are and your objectives are, so whatever you're targeted on, like if you're betting on a paid media channel to contribute to that goal, then probably from the start, you should have a bit of an idea around kind of like, this is what I'm hoping to achieve this quarter, this month, etc., to meet that goal. Like what you should have in mind is like, evaluate the metrics after give the campaigns, depending on how much budget you've got, give them enough time to gather enough data to be meaningful. So like if you run the campaigns for 2 weeks and you haven't put much budget in, like you're going to have like, maybe let's say you have 50 clicks from your campaign. Let's just say you've got a really small budget. You've got 50 clicks from the campaign. Like if we apply a benchmark conversion rate on LinkedIn, which is going to be like a couple of % really, you're not really giving that campaign enough chances to actually know if it's worked or not. So that's really important. Get into like a statistically significant amount of data to know like, have we reached enough people where we could have realistically got a conversion? So you got to give it enough chance for that. But I think what's really important is like after a few weeks, once you've kind of got to that point, what you should be evaluating is like based on kind of what we're seeing at the moment, are these campaigns and is this channel going to meaningfully impact our goals? Like, is it going to get us to where we need to go based on like the conversion rates from the ads, the amount of leads we're getting? Obviously, the way you measure it is going to be super important. So like if we're looking just from a direct response view, so if you're a company where your ads are going to be judged only on last touch attribution leads, like you need to be really looking at, okay, are we generating enough of those like after a few weeks? And is the signs there this is going to scale or got potential? Like that's what you need to be evaluating. Is like, is it going to get to your goal? But if you've got the ability to kind of look at it at a more holistic view in terms of like last touch attribution, but also things like are leads going up in general, and can you communicate that to your leadership team? Then again, you can kind of bring that data together, and like after a few weeks, as long as you feel like you're on the right track and you're on point to hit your goals, and you can communicate that to leadership, then I think that's kind of the way to look at it. But the main thing is like, I think you've got to give it a few weeks, let the data gather, and let it be significant enough where you've actually had enough, the ads have had enough chance to do what they're intended to do, whether that's conversion, whether that's reach people and like get the message out there, and hopefully they come organically. That's really important.
Yeah, and you've also got to understand the where people are going to after they click on the ad. So you could have done everything right with all the great targeting that you set up and all of the best type of ads and best creatives that we've told you about in this mini series, but they're coming onto a landing page, they're coming onto the website, and it's just not good enough. So I've talked about that many times on the podcast, is that if your LinkedIn ads are not performing, it's not necessarily because of the ads or LinkedIn or your targeting. It could be where you've taken them. So you can use tools like Albacross to tell you what people are coming on to the website. So what companies are clicking on the ads. Even LinkedIn actually will tell you this. It won't tell you the people, it'll tell you the company names that have clicked on the ads and come onto the website. So if you're looking at that data and going, oh, we're getting all the right people coming on to the site, all the right people are clicking on these ads, and you're not getting those conversions, then that probably means that the ad campaigns that you've created is good. Where they're going is bad. So usually the messaging, we've talked about that so many times on the podcast, usually people come onto the website or the landing page and just they're reading the words and going, I don't really get this, or there's too many buzzwords, or maybe the platform just doesn't look good enough because you've got these horrible screenshots of the platform. Maybe you've got no screenshots, or maybe it's more, bigger than that, like your pricing is just too expensive or something. So it's not always the LinkedIn ads that go wrong, but you using that data that you mentioned earlier and some intent data, like something like a tool like Albacross, which I think is about $99 a month, which is definitely worth investing in if you are spending money on LinkedIn ads. So don't forget to don't always blame the LinkedIn ads or the targeting. There's also the landing page and the website. If you go back through the SaaS Marketing Weekly series of podcasts, you can find episodes on how to improve landing pages, improve websites. So check that out as well. But yeah, anything else that we haven't covered in terms of what you would look at if a campaign wasn't performing well? What are your sort of go-tos? If you have given it like a month and you're just not getting any leads or not anywhere near as many as you want, maybe some of the other metrics are looking okay, what is your kind of go-to to improve it?
Yeah. So I typically follow a bit of a process if LinkedIn isn't performing well, like it's really easy to get kind of lost in, there's so many things you can change and metrics to look at and all these things that you can kind of get a bit lost in. Particularly when you've got a lot of campaigns on him. So what I try and do is I try and follow a bit of a process where I look at what I consider to be the highest leverage levers available. And I work backwards from what do I think are the highest leverage levers that can impact the campaigns? Are those optimized? And I work my way down. So typically what I'll do, so at the very top, and this is, I think, in general, a good practice for LinkedIn. If LinkedIn ads aren't working, usually it's something to do with targeting. There's a lot of the time, like obviously a lot of people do write bad ads and stuff like that, but targeting is huge. You can have average ads and great targeting and do quite well.
All right, go back to episode 1 then.
Yeah.
Not episode 1 of the podcast, so episode 1 of this mini series. I forget the number.
It was episode 2 actually.
Oh, episode 2, sorry. Right, well, go back to 1 and 2. All right, so targeting is the first thing you look at when a campaign's failing. What else do you look at?
So I'll start with targeting. That's the big one. And I'll obviously try and figure out, like, are we actually going after the right people? We talked a lot about that in the second episode, so go back there in terms of trying to figure out who's the right people to go after. But if I'm confident we're targeting the right people, the next thing I'm going to be looking at is, what I've harped on a lot about this episode is, okay, are we reaching enough people and hitting them enough times? Can we eliminate that? Like, do we have enough audience penetration each month, depending on what the campaign's trying to do? Do we have enough frequency? Can we eliminate that as a lever? If we're underperforming there, that's a lever for me where I can think, right, is there any way for me to deploy budget differently to crank that up if I need to, or down? So that's important to bear in mind, reach and frequency. The next thing I'll be looking at after kind of looking at that, so I've already looked at targets, I've looked at kind of our budgets. Those are two really targeting. I've looked at 2 big levers there. The next thing I'm going to be looking at is the offer. I think the offer is a really important lever on LinkedIn ads. So typically a B2B SaaS company is going to be running like a demo offer. That's kind of like the standard, or it makes sense. Like we'll run them, we'll run demo style offers. But that is a really powerful lever if you've got the ability to, 1, test different offers, and 2, make the offer clearer to who you're going after and make it a more enticing offer. So I think there's loads of things that we can test that a lot of B2B SaaS companies tend to ignore. So alongside like a standard demo offer, there's loads of things like free trial for a lot of companies is a potential thing that you can do that like a lot of companies don't explore. Might not be right for their business model, but it's worth thinking about. An interesting one that I've seen is like, instead of doing a demo offer, if you're not getting success with your current offer as a demo, a personalized demo video. So basically the buyer, instead of having to sit on a sales call and make that commitment at this point, instead the ad will actually say that like you can get a personalized demo video of the platform from one of our team. And from that, basically they get like the video sent over to them. There's no need to sit on a sales meeting. They don't have that friction. And that is still a signifier of intent. It's a bit of a softer conversion in a demo, but again, an interesting offer, and it takes all of that kind of negative connotation of a sales meeting out of it. And then also as well, like incentivized demos. So a lot of people really splits opinions. Things like gift card demo ads can be really effective on the right circumstances, basically doing a pay to pitch where you're doing a 50 card Amazon voucher or Airbnb voucher, etc., in exchange for sitting on a meeting and seeing the product. It can be a shortcut to get people in front of the sales team, which is really worthwhile, and you can track those conversion rates through the funnel. And then alongside that as well, just doing actual product offers, which are a bit more kind of like at Cognizant. I think I've spoken about this before on the pod, like one of their best offers was 25 free leads offer. So what they would do is offer 25 free leads from Cognizant's database, and it'd be a chance to get some of the product without necessarily entering into a sales process. And that was a really effective offer for Cognizant. So if you can tear off a bit of your product and kind of make that, and that's a really effective way to get people in a funnel as well.
Another one is a free strategy call, a free consultation call, a free audit. That worked wonders for my business. Obviously, we're not a SaaS platform, but if you are a SaaS platform that's a bit more like enterprise level or high ticket, that's very kind of involves a human touch to kind of running the relationship with the client, then yeah, a free strategy call can work really well. Like our call to action on our ads, our website used to be request a quotation or contact us. And then we changed it to be request a free SaaS marketing strategy call with me. No obligation to work together. You just tell me about your SaaS marketing challenges. I'll jump on a call. I'm an expert. I've got XYZ experience, and I will chat to you. No obligation, and I'll give you advice on how you can resolve that problem on your own. And our leads tripled overnight as soon as we launched that. And it's still our main call to action, and it probably always will be. Maybe it won't always be me doing it. Maybe we'll get you doing them, actually. You'd be very good. But yeah, so that's another one. As I said, for the right type of company, so offering to do a free audit, free consultation, those sorts of things I have seen work really well. Because it basically, what you're doing is you're moving the call to action higher up the funnel. Like the bottom of the funnel means I'm ready to buy. And I'm only going to engage with the thing at the bottom of the funnel if I am ready to buy. By having a call to action that's a bit higher up the funnel, you're suddenly getting sales calls with people that are not quite decided that they want to work with you yet. But and again, getting on sales calls is what most people want. Obviously, you have to qualify those people. You have to have a form that says, like, our form basically says how much money have you got, or how much money are you willing to spend in marketing per month, or something like that. And then we do due diligence, like we check them on LinkedIn. Have they got the right headcount for us? Are they possibly going to work with us? Because you don't want to be doing free strategy calls, free audits, free consultations with people that are never going to buy from you. So you have to highly qualify them. But that can be a fantastic lead magnet as well.
I think the important thing, like, to go back to on it though, really is like we said, working back through the levers. What are the biggest levers we can pull? And if we get to the offer and you review your offer, what are we offering? If it's not getting any take up, then you're just thinking about how can we make this better, or decrease the friction to get it taken up. So that's why all the things we talked about, these are all options. These are all things you can do. And you can even scale down as far as, like, if you're really struggling and like you're testing different kind of product offers and demo offers and nothing's really getting taken up, like if you kind of like need to think about, well, how do we just get relevant people talking to sales? You can even go down to like content offers, like gated content. It's not something we do. It's not something we necessarily advise for like what we think is like a sustainable long-term strategy for a business, which I think is part of the problem in SaaS, is people run gated content as like a whole strategy. But it can work as an offer, like in terms of a really valuable lead magnet, get someone into the database and someone relevant that soft hand raise, we're interested in something that you do. And then sales can reach out to those people. But you just think about what are the offers that make sense here? What's going to be enticing for the buyer? And that's a really powerful lever. And that can make or break a campaign, basically.
Yeah. And there's also obviously the other thing to look at if the campaign is not performing. You've already mentioned targeting. You've mentioned the offer. And obviously there is the creative as well. Some of the worst ads that you can see is just too wordy. A lot of people say that a LinkedIn ad should have a header that's 10 words or less. That's a general kind of number that I've seen banded around. And we follow that principle generally. And sometimes the best performing ads just have a big header. They hardly have any creative graphics going on. People try and put too much effort into the creative. What you do by having too much stuff going on is that people just, when they're scrolling through their LinkedIn, you have to remember that they're not looking for your ad. They're not looking to buy. They're just scrolling, often on their phone, just like doom scrolling through it. You have to grab them. And by showing them something that's very busy and overly creative, it doesn't grab people. Their mind goes, I'm not reading that. I'm not going to spend the half a second it takes to figure out what the hell's going on with that ad. Conversely, if they scroll to an ad that's just got a very clear, punchy, big font statement, their mind can read that in like during the scroll pretty much, and you can get them to stop. So that's the other thing to look at is, are you being too complex, too creative with your ads, the messaging on the ads as well, obviously. And then the other thing, I guess, from me would be, I guess we've kind of covered this in episode 1 of this mini series, is don't be doing too much bottom of the funnel. I mean, this is very basic LinkedIn ads, but this is what I see most of the time. A lot of clients that work with us for the very first time, we audit their LinkedIn ads and they're just running ads that say, oh, book a demo with us, we're great. They haven't got enough of that thought leadership ads, helping people solve a problem ads, case study ads, testimonial ads, which we talk about in part 1 of this mini series. So that's first thing one of the things that I'd raise anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's kind of the next steps for me as well. Like once I've kind of gone through those other levers, then I'm looking at messaging, creative, and that's where everyone jumps to. Everyone always jumps to that first. I think that's the natural temptation. It's like the ads ain't working, the ads aren't good, but I think definitely go through the other levers first, because one, they can be quicker. It's quicker often to change the targeting and the budget, and almost sometimes the offer. It's quicker to do that. Then you go in and change all the ads. But that's when I get down, that's when you look at the ads and the creative and the messaging. And ultimately, like if all the other stuff's dialed in, then you need to start looking at, okay, well, maybe it's the ads then. It's the ads, it's the messaging, and you need to get that dialed in. Is it resonating? Is it fit for who you're targeting? Is it creative, like you mentioned? Is it clear? Is it kind of like, is it digestible? Actually, good tip here. Like often, like you'd be surprised at how much traffic, how much of your impressions are on mobile. So that is such an important thing to bear in mind on LinkedIn, is that often if you overcrowd the ad, it doesn't look great on mobile.
Because it's visibly smaller on mobile.
Yeah.
So yeah, because I've had that complaint to designers before, where they send me an ad and I look at it because I open it up in Google Drive or whatever, and it pops up massive on my monitor. And I'm like, yeah, this looks great. Then I'm like, hey, wait a minute. When this goes live on LinkedIn ads, it's going to be like half the size of what I'm looking at now. And when it's on mobile, it's going to be another 30, 40% smaller than this. So I'm not going to be able to read that font, not going to be able to understand what that graphic is. So yeah, we need to pump everything up and remove some of the detail. So yeah, that is a good point.
Yeah.
But I think we've covered enough. I think we've gone through a lot. We've done 3 episodes in a row.
We love LinkedIn. We love LinkedIn ads.
You do love LinkedIn. And I will say, since Jamie has joined Rocket SaaS, our leads have massively gone up from LinkedIn ads, essentially. So you clearly do know your stuff. And all of our clients' ads are going up that you've been involved in. So he does know his stuff. But I think they know that by now. But they should have got that impression, the audience. So yeah, if you are running LinkedIn ads, or if you're thinking about running LinkedIn ads, maybe you've run LinkedIn ads and you were getting terrible performance, so you turned them off. If you're looking for an agency to support you in doing your LinkedIn ads and basically running everything that Jamie's gone through over the last 3 episodes, reach out to us, rocket-saas.io. We'll do an audit of your business. We'll understand where you're at with your marketing, not just your LinkedIn ads, your content, your strategy, your demand generation funnel, your website optimization. And we can become your marketing support partner, whether you've got someone in marketing in-house and we can support them to do all the things that Jamie talked about today and more, or if you don't even have anyone in marketing in-house, we can become your marketing department, essentially. So you get to work with me and Jamie and the rest of the team here at Rocket SaaS. So go on to rocket-saas.io, check it out. If not, I'll just see you next week on the SaaS Marketing Weekly podcast. But thank you so much, Jamie. See you next time.
Thanks for having me.